changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your Chicken Soup and Soul. So let me ask you this. Are you stuck in a rut? Do you never try anything new? How does that make you feel? I know I talk about it all the time, but our writers send us thousands of stories every year about how energized and empowered they feel when they start saying yes instead of no to new things. So let's begin with one of my favorite stories on this topic. It's by Victoria Otto Francesi, and she resolved to do something new every single day during the year she turned 50. She says that balancing 365 new things with work and family was not always easy. In the early weeks of the project, she would be racking her brain at 11:45 p.m. to make sure she came up with her new thing for that day that was almost over. But she found some little things that she could do. Things like doing her first Sudoku puzzle or smoking a cigar. And she found some big things like signing up for an online class to learn Italian. As time went by, she found it easier to find those new things to do. And it wasn't long before her friends learned that she was open to almost anything they suggested. So friends of friends, everyone started suggesting things that Vicky could do during her year of saying yes to new things. As a result, she went dog sledding. She went stargazing on the High Line in New York City. She had lunch with Antonio Lofaso. She attended a Fashion Week show. She met a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. She says that she turned into a person who said, "Why not?" instead of "why." And one of the really fun things that she did was join a local group trying to get into the Guinness Book of World Records by having the most people jumping on mini trampolines at once. Now you can imagine that a lot of Vicky's new things involved new foods, ones that she tried eating and ones that she tried cooking. So she ate wild boar and she made hummus from scratch. Vicky says it didn't really matter what she did. What mattered was that she discovered there were an endless number of new things for her to try. She says that turning 50 became an opportunity to experience the world a little differently and to counteract all that's easy, predictable, or monotonous. So I'm a resident of the little state of Connecticut. So I appreciate it when I find a fellow nutmegger I can quote. And I'm going to quote Pauline Keiser, who was a scrappy Connecticut politician. And she said something that's perfect for today's topic. She said, "Continuity gives us roots. Change gives us branches, letting us stretch and grow and reach new heights." Well, reaching new heights was exactly what I did when I stepped outside my comfort zone on a vacation in the Middle East right before I turned 60. That's when I found myself standing at the top of a 1,000-foot sheer cliff in Oman, looking down at a beautiful beach resort on the Persian Gulf. You might think that taking a beach vacation on the Persian Gulf was enough of a step outside your comfort zone experience, but that was actually easy. It was beautiful and luxurious. And they picked us up at the airport in Dubai, and they took care of getting us across the border into Oman. Oman is a beautiful country. It's on the Arabian Peninsula. It's known for its craggy sandstone mountains that plummet right down to the sea. It's really dramatic to see those tall mountains with those sheer cliffs going right down to the water, occasionally with beaches running just along the edge of the sea. So the challenging part was the approach to this fabulous resort, which is so remote that you have 3 choices for the last part of the trip. You can arrive by speedboat from Dubai, or you can drive into Oman and then drive down a narrow, winding 5-kilometer mountain road with hairpin turns and no guardrails. Or you can jump off that 1,000-foot mountain cliff and paraglide down to the beach. And according to TripAdvisor.com, the really cool guests paraglide in. So I decided that as a very cool 59-year-old, I would paraglide down to the beach. And I imagined that paragliding involves some kind of fixed wing thing like bird wings. That made aerodynamic sense to me. Wings that were already in place, which would be guaranteed to work. It's not like parachuting out of an airplane where the fabric might somehow not get itself organized into the right parachute shape, or the strings might get tangled up, because I would never do that. Well, I was shocked when they were putting the harness on me, and I turned around at the top of the cliff, and I saw this flimsy piece of fabric lying on the ground behind me with lots of little strings attached to it. And that was when I realized that paragliding is called that because you use a parachute. For someone who specializes in words and clear language, I had really been off my game. But I didn't have much time to think about it because they were already strapping me in. And then they stuck a helmet on me, and I don't know what they said this was for. But whatever they were saying, what I heard in my mind was to identify the body. And then they told me that it was critically important that I run toward the cliff and absolutely not stop under any circumstances. Because if I didn't run right off the cliff, that flimsy piece of fabric with the 1 million strings wouldn't catch the air and I would plummet to my death. Well, before I could change my mind, because this was insane, the guide and I were running toward the edge of the cliff. And then, miraculously, that parachute filled with air, the strings all worked properly, and we were soaring. We were riding the air currents and flying even higher than where we had started. Now, the guide was thrilled that the air currents were so strong and that we could stay up an extra long time. I didn't really want to hear that. I was only half enjoying this experience because the other half of my brain was trying to remember what wind shear was and whether that was relevant. And if the winds changed, because it had been kind of a weird day with the winds, we had been delayed an hour because of it. I wondered, could we just drop like a rock? Well, anyway, we soared for 15 very, very long minutes. And then finally, we flew lower and lower until we put our legs out and we ran to a stop on the beach. So, mission accomplished. It was time for a stiff drink, and I knew I would never have to do that again. But I also knew if I could run off a cliff in Oman, then anything was possible. So it was really empowering, and I'm so glad that I did it. And I've tried plenty of other less frightening things since then, because I've been comparing everything to paragliding. Basically, if I could run off a cliff in Oman, I could certainly ride a roller coaster back here in the States, or be the keynote speaker at a conference, or try a new kind of food, or even climb into the chemo chair. Basically, everything seemed possible, and 60 didn't feel quite as old as I had feared. So these stories were found in our most recent book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Young at Heart. And this book covers a little bit of everything, but basically it's all about all the fun and adventure that still lies ahead of you. I'm Amy Newmark. Thanks for listening today. If you want to learn more about our new books and everything else going on at Chicken Soup for the Soul, well, you can join the more than 2 million people who follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, now called X, or you can visit our website, chickensoup.com. And if you'd like to get your own copy of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Young at Heart, you'll find it at Walmart, Kroger, Meijer, other stores, plus Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, and of course on Amazon. And please come back for our next episode with more stories that I find incredibly useful, this time about the joy of less and why and how we can get ourselves to start decluttering.